What parallels can we draw between France in 1789 and the United States in 2025? Professor Poutine here, time for Mysteries, Histories. Now, of course, historical parallels are just that, parallels. France 1789 is a very different country than the United States 2025. But when the revolution breaks out in 1789, it's caused primarily by four key factors. Let's see if any of these sound familiar. Number one was an economic crisis and poor harvests in particular. Farmers found themselves increasingly under stress and strain, unable to make ends meet, unable to get crops out of the field. Bad harvests were compounding year after year, and the farmers felt themselves incredibly squeezed. They couldn't even feed themselves, let alone feed the people in the city, and so hunger began to rise. Secondly, there were increasingly high prices as inflation ticked up year after year after year. The cost of food, the cost of energy, the cost of whatever it is the average French person needed. And as those prices went up, disproportionately affecting the poor, anger began to rise. The third thing was the social inequality had reached an all-time high, with the richest of the rich doing the least to benefit the country and the poorest of the poor suffering the most in terms of their percentage of income that they pay into taxes relative to the rich. And they really began to realize that this deep sense of injustice that they found was being driven by hunger and by unfairness, which they saw the rich weren't experiencing. And this really leads us to the final breaking point in France in 1789. The poor were going hungry, and they perceived that the government couldn't care less about the fact that the poorest of the poor couldn't put food on the table for their children. And it was that hunger and that rage at the inequality that drove the French people out onto the streets in the summer of 1789 with the bread crisis and the March on Versailles. Hunger, inflation, farmers at risk, and social inequality. Where have I heard that recently? Consider yourself updated.